Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in. This morning I read something that I felt really telling. It was written by a woman named Laura Dodsworth. First they came for the truckers, and I did not speak out because I was not a trucker. Then they came for the donors to truckers, and I did not speak out because I was not a donor to truckers. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Yesterday, I personally witnessed a woman get trampled. Her name was Candace Sarah. She's alive, despite the rumors. However, today, police are employing pepper spray against Canadians. So it's a dark day in our history. Never in my life would I believe anyone if they told me that our Prime Minister would refuse dialogue and choose violence against peaceful protesters. We're all in shock, and we are currently organizing legal counsel in support for those injured by police brutality and for those being arrested. Proud citizens demonstrating for their freedoms are now being apprehended for holding Canadian flags. They are being targeted for waving our glorious maple leaf. As we have seen, each time the government throws hurdles our way, it only strengthens Canadians' resolve. This demonstration has never been about COVID-19. It's been about the restrictions on personal autonomy that have been falsely justified for public safety. The infringement on our rights is now obvious and on full display in our nation's capital. 3 of our organizers, Chris, Tamara, and Danny, have been arrested on petty counts of mischief, and bank accounts of those who dared speak out have been frozen, including mine. All in Trudeau's desperate attempt to intimidate the opponents of his tyrannical regime. This is a grassroots movement, and others will fill their roles. Others have already filled their roles. People want a hero to rally around. There is no single person who leads this freedom convoy. This is ordinary Canadians who are asserting their rights. I'm certainly not a hero. I'm simply a father. I never thought I'd see the day when law enforcement officers would be arresting citizens for the crime of exercising their charter rights and freedoms to free assembly and free speech. It remains to be seen if Canadian democracy can survive such an abuse of power. There are hundreds of police on Parliament Hill. Many are here in riot gear holding military assault rifles. There are armored vehicles and police transport buses. For what? We have no answer to that question. When someone held up their arms to protect against a baton being swung at their head, the Ottawa police claimed that their weapon was being reached for. Now they are claiming that not a single protester was trampled. I saw it myself. I was 10 feet away. Minutes after Tamara Litch crouched down to be in a picture with a little girl while exchanging hugs and well wishes with fellow demonstrators, she was arrested for aiding and abetting mischief. The next day, Danny Beaufort pleaded with his fellow police officers right here beside me. He stood here, right here, and pleaded with his fellow police officers. And he was immediately arrested within the hour. This is very reckless, and it is escalating. It's escalating our support. That's all it's escalating. It's painful. Is this a democracy? Is this Canada? Can you hear democracy's death knell? It rings louder than the truckers' horns. The mainstream media has portrayed us as anti-government. I read that this morning on the mainstream media. Well, I've been pleading with the official Canadian government to talk and read our plan, because the only plan that they have is violence. And the institution of a Chinese-style social credit score system, the entire federal government, all of the members of parliament at the federal level should be ashamed of themselves. They have failed us badly. But instead, they're going to give themselves a third pay raise throughout this pandemic, while other people are going to lose everything. We've always been a peaceful protest. There has never been violence in the 3 weeks that I have been here. Just peace, love, hugs, and singing "O Canada." The violence came to us when the police arrived. The police brought the violence. To that end, as a movement, we have chosen to peacefully withdraw from the streets of Ottawa. There is nothing to be gained by being brutalized by police. We will simply regroup as a grassroots movement. If the police can tame their insatiable need for violence and remove the barriers preventing us from actually leaving, we will peacefully withdraw starting today. The truckers will be initiating a charter challenge, seeking to have the court strike down the unconstitutional vaccine mandates that discriminate against us all. I'm going to read this from a dear friend. I'm so disappointed on how the truckers' peaceful protest for freedom has been met with violence by the police and the government. We call upon all Canadians to join us in a movement of silence and prayer. We pray for peace, freedom, and openness from the government to engage in a healthy discussion. We want safety and freedom for all Canadians. Just give me a minute to grab some water and I'll take some questions. It's been a hard day.
Okay, so obviously people are very upset here in light of this information. We know the truckers are leaving, but that doesn't mean the protesters have to leave, does it?
Every protester here who is on foot in a vehicle, we are not going to behave like the government and tell you what to do. You make your own choice. You've made your own decision. Many of the truckers are choosing to peacefully withdraw. Many people are walking into the city and choosing to exercise their right to protest on foot. So I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm telling everyone to dig deep and decide what is best for them.
Since the beginning, the city has asked you to leave, the police have asked you to leave. They've declared this occupation illegal for, 2 weeks now?
3.
It's full 3 weeks. Okay, there you go. Do you not have some responsibility here for what happened today? I mean, they have made it clear that they were going to deploy riot teams, and you chose to stay. I mean, do you bear any responsibility for that?
What laws have we broken?
I think the police have.
What laws have we broken? They're parking infractions. Parking infractions. What laws? You tell me. Next question.
By peacefully withdrawing, does that mean they are still holding the line?
Every trucker will decide for themselves. We have many truckers who feel that the best course of action for them and their families is to peacefully withdraw and regroup and plan our next move. Because we're not going to just stand there and be a punching bag for law enforcement.
I've been asked to tell you that America is watching. They're watching very acutely as to what's going on here with this violence that's taking place against the truckers. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kirsten Pierce, the liaison officer to the OPP at 10 a.m. this morning, was advised that there would be a peaceful retreat at 1 o'clock and that there'd be no reason for any violence whatsoever. And since 10 o'clock, we've had rubber bullets, tear gas canisters, and beatings.
I was in communication with the police this morning myself. The police, the OPP liaison officer that I've been dealing with, exceptional guy, honestly. He passed up the message up the chain of command. I guaranteed him that the vast majority of the truckers do want to peacefully withdraw, but it is an individual choice for every trucker. And we need their assistance to actually move barriers to let us out. And we also need to be able to get fuel into those trucks so that the trucks can actually drive out of here as well. And the response I got was, I'll pass it up the chain. And you know, that was at about 10 after 10 this morning.
Tom, Andrew Lawton, True North. I had a source that said that the Convoy organizers are in control of the Give, Send, Go money, and it's in unfrozen currency, and it's made it into Canada. Is that accurate? And if so, what's the plan with that money?
Honestly, I really cannot speak to the Give, Send, Go that issue at all. Like I'm not on the inside of those particular discussions. But what I can say is that ordinary people, I had a wonderful woman that I met last weekend walk up to me and just give me a $10 bill and said, could you put this into the hands of the trucker? That's what I did. And we have had, I would say probably hundreds of thousands of dollars donated in cash from anonymous donors that just want to support us.
And what is going to happen to that money? We see about $1 million has been released. Is this going to be dispersed in any way to the people who have suffered property damage? Is there going to be any accountability?
People who have, okay, that's a Tanya Harding question. Next.
No. If you have $1 million, what's going to happen to the money? This was donated to
Next
people
question.
here, not you personally.
How much money do you have in your bank accounts right now for the official?
Me personally, I have none.
No.
It's been frozen.
You have a not-for-profit. How much
Yep.
money is in the bank account of your not-for-profit?
I don't know. Next question. That's
Your supporters, you owe them some accountability, surely.
He
You
said
have
he
a
doesn't
bank
know.
account.
I don't know. I don't know.
He
But
doesn't
who
know.
knows? Then who knows?
And that's his answer. Why do you want another
Because
one?
it's $1 million that donated to the people on
But
the streets
he
and no
doesn't
one's seen it.
know.
I haven't talked to anyone who's
He
seen
said
any
he
money.
doesn't know. He's not
And
part
who
of
knows?
that.
Okay.
Actually, they've all seen a lot of money, hand to hand. Just stop.
Anybody else have a good question?
Follow up on,
Do you think that by having the truckers withdraw from the city, that the Trudeau government would consider negotiating with organizers?
No, he won't.
That's a good question, and I want to be very careful about how I answer that. Because from day one, the mainstream media has painted this as anti-government and some ridiculous comments about us wanting government change. Completely false. I've never sat in on a meeting that as a talking point. So I want to be very clear that our intent has always been and always will be to talk to the official government of Canada. I have stood at this podium. I have done other media events where I have outlined a plan and I've said, I'd like to talk to you. The response was, riot police. No discussion, no dialogue. And I think Canadians should be absolutely appalled by the fact that we elected these people to represent our best interest, but not to lord over us like kings and queens and refuse to talk when, you know, they prefer violence. So I just wanna leave it at that because I know how this will be spun. But I think people are smart enough to realize that, the preferred course of action from the government of Canada is violence over peace.
What's the most meaningful thing Canadians can do who aren't in Ottawa to help plead your cause at this juncture?
I would, you know what the most meaningful thing people can do is learn the Charter of Rights backwards and forwards. Understand what's inside it. And if you don't have a copy, Google it or look inside your passport. I'm pretty sure it's written on the inside. Start exercising your charter rights. Do it today. I don't wear a mask. I haven't worn a mask since the spring because I read the science. I understand the science. A virus is 3 microns. A mask, though, the holes are 60. It's like kicking a fly through a field goal. And I know that in the mainstream media world, the soundbite will be that Tom is an anti-masker. Yes, I'll wear a mask when it makes sense. If it, I've talked to the vaccinologists, Dr. Byron Bridle, say it doesn't make sense. That's the science I listen to, not the political science, the actual medical science.
You mentioned speaking to the OPP liaison as recently as this morning. In your conversations with police, has there been any discussion about whether there's an amnesty granted to those leaving peacefully today, or has that topic come up in your conversation with them about arrests after the fact, arrests today?
Not directly with the police. They haven't indicated to me one way or another, but I have been told that it's a bit of a catch and release operation where they're taking people to the edge of the city and releasing them outside of the downtown core. That's what I've been told.
Most of the other organizers have been arrested and charged now. Are you facing arrest?
I asked yesterday if I asked the OPP liaison team if there was an actual arrest or a warrant for my arrest, and they said not to their knowledge. But you know, today's Saturday. I don't know. That was Friday. Or is it this today, Sunday? I don't even know what day it is.
Saturday.
It's starting to be Groundhog Day.
Right.
You
The Americans are asking that in the United States, every elected official must be licensed, bonded, and insured. From school boards to governors, the license is their oath of office. In the United States, they've started to go after the bonds, and they're winning. Is there a similar type of thing here in Canada?
You'd have to ask a lawyer. That's a good question. I'd love to see the results of that question, but I don't know. And
they are winning in the United States,
Yeah.
so maybe we should be going after them through the Charter of Rights.
yeah, I don't have any answer for that. There was a question over here.
Yeah, just a follow-up. So when all the truckers who are here are getting in their trucks and leaving,
Yeah.
you said that you want them to go home. So are
No,
you?
I'm not going to tell them where to go. We have places for them to go as an intermediate point where they can rest, refuel, and say goodbye to friends or say what's next.
But are you wanting to see, or specifically not wanting to see, other blockades form at other points in the country?
I think as a grassroots movement, we will. For example, we had no communication, no contact with what was happening in any of the other grassroots movements across Canada. You know, Niagara Falls, Fort Erie, Windsor, all across the Canada. All these grassroots movement popped up. You could say that we inspired people to actually take action, but we certainly were not giving any direction. These movements are just organic. They pop up where people want to get up and do something because they're fed up after 2 years of being treated like this.
Yeah.
So we are not directing anyone to go specifically to any one place and to take any action. We are simply peacefully withdrawing from this area because we don't believe that there's anything that can be gained by being a human punching bag for the police or being arrested or having their property seized or destroyed. So we're just going to regroup and figure out what's next. Maybe it's the court action. that we're going to be not launching. Maybe it's actually more grassroots movements.
One more question. The Americans are saying that they've read over the emergency declaration, and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is supposed to survive the emergency declaration, which means the free movement of a Canadian citizen anywhere in the country without any obstruction whatsoever. How can the police justify this militaristic state where they're actually barring people from coming into Ottawa?
Well, you know, it's a good question, and you're referring to Section 6 of the Charter. I've read it, as every Canadian should be reading it today. You know, it's curious. They've given themselves political cover and protections under this emergency order, which do not apply to us here in Ottawa. Maybe there was a case to be made that they applied somewhere else, but they don't apply to us here in Ottawa. But I find it very interesting that at the federal level, the federal MPs did not go to work yesterday and actually start debating the actual legality or the improper use of the Emergency Act, which is their duty to do. And instead what they're doing is they're stalling and they're allowing these things to happen to Canadians right now until the 7-day period ends. And then at the end, they can all look at themselves and go, oh, oops, yeah, we did vote it down. But the damage is already going to be done, right? So we need, honest to God, people with moral courage in this town. Moral courage. Absolute moral courage, because people here are displaying physical courage and a lot more moral courage than you're seeing up in Parliament at every party's level, or every political party in this country. I'm not impressed with any of them, but I will talk to the federal Liberal Party if they want to sit down and go through this plan and make it work.